Hello friends, welcome back to another TBR Jar Reading vlog. It's September, a new month, a new book to pick out of the jar. The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. Here we go, The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. I am looking forward to this one. Her debut novel, The Age of Miracles, was one of my favorite books when it came out, and this is her second book. It came out a couple years ago. I just haven't gotten around to reading it. According to the description, this book is about a small town in Southern California, an isolated college town that gets hit by a mysterious illness where people are just kind of in perpetual sleep mode. And when the doctors are studying them, it looks like they're having like higher levels of brain activity indicating they're dreaming, and maybe the dreams have something to do with the mysterious illness. I don't know. So it sounds kind of like a literary sci-fi or psychological suspense of some kind. So I'm excited to dive in and see what this one is all about, and I'm excited to take you along with me on the journey. Let's start reading. We rented a beach house for Labor Day weekend. I brought the Dreamers along with me. I'm hoping to get some good reading done. This weekend is all about soaking up as much of the summer as we can before fall starts. That means lots of beach walks, hikes, canoeing, hanging out with friends. It should be a pretty fun weekend. So the book starts out with a rather unsettling event. A girl in a dorm room falls asleep and never wakes up. Eventually this girl dies, and then another girl gets sick. And this sleeping sickness begins to sweep through a college dormitory in this small town. Everybody's starting to get a little nervous about it. No one's ever seen anything like this before. No one can really explain where it came from or how it spreads, but it is very contagious, and it's spreading through this small college. And so right away, right when this book starts, I'm just feeling very unsettled by it. But also from the very first page, I am sucked into this story. We're staying with some friends at this beach house, and there's another dog here. His name is Buddy. He is a sweetheart. Our first night at the beach ends with a beautiful sunset. We were gonna try and go canoeing this morning, but when we woke up, it was just foggy and raining and misting, so we decided to stay inside, put some puzzles together, drink some coffee, make some biscuits, watch some movies, just hunker down and enjoy this rainy, misty day. We took Charlie for a walk out on the beach. There were clouds, but it wasn't too cold. The rain had stopped. We found a little free library on the way home, but the pickings were kind of slim. I didn't end up taking anything home. I'm right in the middle of a really good book anyway. The Dreamers is really good. I am really enjoying it. And nothing here captured my interest. So as for this book, it's hitting really close to home. I don't think I realized when I started reading it how close it would feel to my own life. Here we are 18 months into a pandemic. It has been a long year for everyone, and this book, I'm seeing a lot of similarities. The kids who are in the college, they have been quarantined in their dorm rooms, and they're just kind of trying to pass the time. They're bored, they're waiting for answers, everyone just doesn't really know what's going on. And wow, does that feel very familiar to me. Except for that one day that was a little rainy, it has been sunny, blue skies. We've been able to take Charlie on a lot of really long beach walks, which he loves. Normally he's able to get off his leash, but this time around there were just a lot of people. There were bicycles and he chases bicycles, so he had to stay on his leash. But we let him lead us around and I think he had a good time. The puzzle is almost done. It's this cute little craft cabinet corner thing. I don't know. It's got a lot of silly little things in it, but we're having a good time putting it together. We're definitely gonna finish it before this weekend is over. One great thing about the Oregon coast is that in addition to sandy beaches that you can walk on, there are also a ton of forested trails. This one is pretty low-key. It leads down to a little beach. It goes through some old growth. There's a lot of cool bridges. It was a pretty laid-back hike. You get a little bit of everything. You get the trees, you get the waterfalls, you get a river. At the end, you get the ocean. We found the suspension bridge that was pretty fun to walk over. Charlie is not at all sure about this suspension bridge. This book is actually a pretty fast read. I haven't been doing a lot of reading on the beach. I've been mostly reading on the porch or at the house, but I'm moving pretty quickly through it, and it is getting intense. So in this book, we're bounced between several characters, and it really does propel the story forward in a very interesting way. You know what else I'm really enjoying about this book? Is the way that Karen Thompson Walker's writing is so spare. It's pared down, it's very slim, just very close to the bone. It feels very raw and urgent, and there's also this emotional distance to it that works really well for the unsettling feeling of the story. I think that is my word for the book, unsettling. There were a lot of jellyfish washed up on the beach. This one is called a lion jellyfish. We can't go home without first taking our canoe out for a paddle. We put the boat in at Wheeler Marina and paddled up the Nehalem River. It was gorgeous. We saw a couple of harbor seals and a lot of fish jumping. The weather couldn't have been more perfect. Wow. Wow. I was not expecting this book to be as good as it is. Let me be honest with you. It has been about 2.5 weeks since I finished The Dreamers. We went to the beach on Labor Day weekend and it is now, so it has been a while since I finished this book, but it has stuck with me. So The Dreamers is set in a small town in California. It's a college town. It starts out with just a whopper of a first scene. One of the college students gets sick, she falls asleep and never wakes up, and she dies. And then there's another kid who falls asleep and never wakes up, and then another kid who falls asleep and never wakes up, and this sleeping contagion begins to sweep through this college. The story is told from 3 different characters' point of views. There are a few other characters sprinkled in there, but the 3 main characters, you have May, who is the roommate of the first girl who fell asleep. Then you have a psychiatrist, a doctor who comes from out of town to try and figure out what's going on with these kids. And then the third narrator is a young girl, she's like 11 or 12. She has a sister, she lives with her father, just kind of isolated, but her father is the janitor at the college, and one day he comes home after hearing about this disease and he kind of just shuts off his family from the rest of the world. He is a survivalist, a prepper. They have all this food in their basement and he's just worried because he's no one's telling us what's going on. So those are the 3 people who narrate this book. And like I mentioned in the vlog, this book was very unsettling. I think the fact that we are still right in the middle of our own pandemic, coupled with the way that Karen Thompson Walker writes, just made this book a perfect storm of dread. And yet I couldn't stop turning the pages. I had to know what was going to happen to these people. I got completely invested. Oh wait, there was one more narrator. A man who is a teacher at the school, or him and his wife are teachers, and they recently moved to this town and they have a new baby and they've been at home on maternity leave taking care of this baby when all of this breaks out. I think those are all the main narrators. And wow, I was just sucked into every one of their stories and just desperate to know what was going to happen to them and how this was all going to unfold. What I think Karen Thompson Walker is best at is taking these premises, these wild premises, In her first book, it was, I think the earth was tilted a slightly different direction, something knocked it off its regular course, and so time was slowing down, and that was affecting this neighborhood. In this one, it is a strange disease that is putting people to sleep and then they're not waking up for a very long period of time. So she takes these premises that are really interesting and she has those at the core of her book, but then she layers in all these emotional details and like the very small lives of the people who are affected by these very big, strange premises. And with these strange premises, she's able to kind of like just dig into the human condition in a very unique way. I felt a little bit of nostalgia with this book, the same as I did when I read The Age of Miracles. There's just something about her writing that just kind of, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're missing something that you didn't even know you had forgotten about. I feel like this book may have affected me more than it would have if I had read it when I first got it. I have read similar kinds of books, pandemic type books, and they have not affected me quite as much as this one did. And I think part of that is because it felt very close and very real. It hit home with me because we are enduring our own pandemic. And there were a lot of similar emotions at play. The people in this book were experiencing some very similar things to what we've been experiencing. It was a really good book, but I'm not sure that it would be for everyone in this moment. Not everyone wants to read about a pandemic during a pandemic. Now, granted, this one, there is a little bit of a not a magical element. I wouldn't say magic is the right word to describe it, but we don't learn a lot about the sleeping disease. We don't dive into the science of it. And I'm sure that if you kind of dug in, you could pick out some plot holes or whatever. It's mainly a structure upon which the emotional arcs of the characters are built and how each person is experiencing loss and experiencing change and growing into themselves and deciding how to help or not help their communities. And it doesn't really get too graphic with the details of the deaths or the sicknesses. I mean, it was really interesting to think about an entire community falling asleep and like who would care for the people who were sleeping, because these people can't eat, they can't drink, they can't, take care of themselves, they can't go to the bathroom, they're gonna get bed sores. Just the amount of work that goes into taking care of sick people and what happens when you start running out of people to take care of sick people. Again, that hits home. That felt real. Yeah, the disease was different, but the emotions were very similar. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a book I'm going to remember for quite a while. Though it took a little while to get used to like the multiple narrators that Karen Thompson Walker uses, once I settled into the idea that we were switching back and forth between 3 or 4 different narrators, I really got invested in each and every one of their stories. Would I recommend this book? That's a hard question to answer. If you know going in that it is about a contagious disease, and so it's not quite a pandemic because they contain it, it doesn't move past their community. They quarantine this small town, and so the sleeping illness stays in the small town. And so you don't get the global impact of, say, our current pandemic state. You get kind of like a microscopic, a very closed community view of a contagion, an unexplainable disease spreading quickly through a town. So I don't know if I can recommend it. I want to say yes because it was just so good and just a very intimate portrait of a community and people taking care of one another or not taking care of one another. There's a love story in there, a couple love stories. There's like coming of age elements. There's just a lot in such a slim book. Karen Thompson Walker does a lot with this story. So yes, I would recommend it. As long as you go into it knowing that you might feel a little bit too close to it, or you might feel a little unsettled. That is the word for this video, unsettled. This copy is autographed and I am keeping it on my shelf. Okay, that's it for the September TBR Jar Reading vlog. Thanks for watching. I will be back next month with another pick, maybe.